At the time, I was living in a retreat center that was all vegan. We happened to have, yeah, it was, you couldn't even bring a piece of meat on the property. So I was living in like kind of like a little, not a hut, but it was like a clamper, like a fancy camping type of situation. I had it all. I mean, it was nice. I had four walls, windows, doors, and all that. It wasn't a bad situation. It was really, and it was beautiful because it was Hawaii. But I'm cooking, I'm secretly cooking meat inside my room. And like I'm lighting incenses all around because I don't want the neighbors to like smell like, I this turkey tail. And I'm a chef, so I'm cooking, like I'm finding, like, from tail to snout, I'm finding all the cuts. And I'm like, oh wow, sweetbreads, oh, like tripe, oh my god, I got to cook this, it's been a minute. I was just like, I went from 0 to 100.
Pablo, how did you find Carnivore?
So, short story long. Um, my story is sort of like other people that are in the carnivore space. I was vegan at one point, and so I was just searching for health, and searching, for a better way of living, better, for the environment, for myself. And so my story goes back a little bit before that. I'm a professional chef. So I started working in kitchens almost 20 years ago, and I've worked all over the world, I could say. I've done private chefing. I own my own restaurants at some point. And in 2016, as some people might know, two important ingredients that are used in a lot of kitchens are drugs and alcohol. I checked myself into a rehab after many years of drug and alcohol abuse. I'll just be honest with that. And so when I was in rehab, I wanted to I wanted to find a better way of living when I got out. And that's when I found veganism. I basically started working at this restaurant in Miami. It was a vegan restaurant. I got hired as one of the sous chefs, and I just started, diving in. I mean, I wasn't completely vegan at the time, but I was trying my best, and I was learning a lot about vegan cuisine and how to implement it into my own personal life. And that's actually where I met my wife. She came in for a job. She had just finished her culinary school as well. She was actually a raw vegan, and for some who don't know what that is, it's basically everything is raw, right? As it's stated, nothing's cooked. There's a lot of fermenting, a lot of it's a very, very high production cuisine because you have to prepare things ahead of time. I mean, sometimes 24 hours before you can eat, which is sort of an art, I guess, right? But that's besides the point. And she was vegan for about 10 years at this point, or maybe a little bit less, maybe somewhere around that time. And I think in the last few years, she hopped on the raw vegan wagon, and because she had a lot of problems with gut issues, anxiety, and food was that one thing that she was healthy. Even though it was vegan, she eliminated all the processed foods, all the soft drinks, all the processed sugars. So she was like on that path to health. And so when I met her, I was like, well, okay, like let me try this out. This seems kind of exciting. And um, so I started. We both became raw vegans. We left the culinary scene. We went to a retreat center in Arizona, in Patagonia, Arizona, which is up in the mountains. That's where she graduated from this culinary school, and they invited her back to be a chef at the cafe for the retreaters. And being a professional chef, I decided to jump, just to go along with her. And we started doing a lot of juicing. We were eating, I mean, a ton of juicing. We got the expensive $500 juicer because it was going to be like basically everything that we ate was just going to be, juice and vegetables, especially everything raw. So there was no Beyond Beef, there was no Impossible Burgers. And this was like 2017. And I think that's when actually those things started to come into the market more. All the processed foods. It almost seemed like veganism was trending at the time, and maybe I picked up on that, on that wavelength, and I jumped in because I was watching a lot of videos on veganism. And what's interesting, actually, I was working on a yacht for the first time. I got a job on a yacht from a friend of mine who's a chef as well. He asked me, could you work this gig? It's 6 months. So I said, yeah, sure. Let me do that. It's good money. It's in the Bahamas. It's on a yacht. How can I say no to that, right? At the time, I was still eating meat and cooking meat, and I had just met my girlfriend. But I started to get into the veganism at the time, and so I'm cooking for these charters, cooking for the guests. But at the same time, I'm watching vegan activist videos on YouTube. So it started to like, I started to kind of, I don't know, fight a little bit myself. I just didn't know which route to take. I was cooking eggs and beef. I was cooking everything that they would go fishing, and I would, you know, I would be cooking that stuff, but at the same time, I'm watching these vegan videos, and I'm like, hey, do you know where your food is coming from? Do you know the suffering? The typical conversations you have with vegans, right? It's always seems to be that same rhetoric of like, do no harm, and it's better for you, and you could live a healthy life eating plant-based. You can thrive and all that. So I left the boat 6 months later, and that's when I went full vegan. And for the next 5 years, we worked at vegan restaurants. We opened up 2 vegan cafes. So at one point, we moved to California. I'm from Florida originally. That's where I'm at right now. I moved to California, and we opened up a vegan pop-up. So it was like a sourdough pizza. So we were doing, like we were making everything from scratch, the cheese, the mock meats. So it was healthy. Like we weren't using Beyond products, and we weren't really we were using just good, clean ingredients at that point. We expected, or we thought we were at least. And, it was organic, and the pizza business was going well. And we were like, okay, how do we wanted to take it to the next level. I mean, we wanted to be in every store. We wanted to be have more restaurants. But then COVID hit, and it kind of killed the business, which was, what, honestly, it was a blessing in disguise, because, we were eating incorrect food. Now that I look back, I was eating a lot of poisons and whatnot. And I should mention this, but like when I was vegan, and I'm not trying to make the story all about how negative veganism was, but it's part of the story of how I found carnivore. And my body was like 20 years older than my actual age. So I had pains in my joints. I had lower back pain to the point that I was going to acupuncturists. I was going to chiropractors. I was having my girlfriend at the time. She would sit on my back, or like I would have to just apply a lot of pressure no, I know now that it was inflammation, um, that, from the foods that I was eating, but I kept juicing, and I kept eating more sprouts and eating more, fermented this, and just trying to like up the nutritional value or count in my food, because I thought that if I ate more of that, then I would be feeling better. But the more I ate, I actually felt worse. And I just kept hearing people telling me, like, oh, well, that's just you're detoxing. That's always a story. Like, you're in pain, oh, you're detoxing. It's normal. I'm like, wow, okay, I must have been really toxic, because this feels like, this feels like it's never going to end, this detox. Like, and it's interesting how that happens. Like, you start eating it and you become sicker. And I was like, okay, I thought it was normal, because all the influencers, all the vegan influencers that I was following at the time, they were doing the same thing, and they were preaching about it. And so, all right, so my body's killing me. I literally have no energy to go to the gym. I have no, like, my mental, my depression, I guess you could say. I started to get really depressed. I was never clinically uh, determined, to be depressed, but that's what it felt like. I was really struggling a lot. And being that I was sober, or trying to stay sober, that made it even more difficult, right? Because, like, now, you know I'm having all these, like, pains in my body. And that's kind of why I started doing drugs in the first place, is because I had a lot of pain in my body from working in restaurants, standing up 20 hours, and just, just a lot of grunt work. I started taking some painkillers, and that's kind of what led me to rehab, was taking these painkillers, because I needed to continue to work, but my body was just aching, and that didn't help at all. So it was a struggle, to try to stay sober, and at the same time try to be healthy with this vegan, way of living. And so we kind of, just brushed it off, like, okay, this is my life. I was actually thinking about doing surgery on my back. I would go to doctors and be like, there's something wrong. There's, like, I must have, like, a herniated disc or something. It must be. And they would not see anything. Maybe I wasn't doing the correct test, but I didn't have, thousands of dollars to pay for tests to see the inflammation. I don't know what kind of tests you have to get done for that, but I lived with the pain. I was just like, okay, well, I'll lay down as much as possible until I need to get up. That was kind of my daily routine. So, fast forward a little bit, after we closed our businesses in California because of COVID, our friend of ours invited us to open up a restaurant in Hawaii. So we went there. He had a cafe at the time, and it was doing really poorly. So we decided to go help him, and kind of just revamp the restaurant and create a new one and a new menu. And so these two restaurants were actually vegan. One was a vegan cafe, so we were serving our sourdough products, and then the other one was an ice cream shop. So we were making, using macadamia milk. We were making the ice cream base, because macadamias kind of grow wild out there. Yeah, we were chefs at the end of the day. So we wanted to be still creative. We didn't want to use all these, like, xanthan powders and soy lecithin, like all these, powders, that most people are using. In most of those chemicals are being used in the food today. So we wanted to kind of stay true to, like, clean ingredients. And at that time, still, I have a lot of pain in my body, my mind. I'm just super depressed. I'm angry all the time. I'm fighting with everybody. I'm just not happy. you know. And so me and my partner, we ended up splitting, my business partner, and he ended up kind of just buying us out, me and my wife. He bought us out. We had some money now, and we're like, you know what? We're in Hawaii. Let's just take off a little bit of time. Let's take off, as much time as we can. This is the first time in 20 years that I took off from work, and I was just ready um, to live my life a little bit. So we left the restaurant. This is the first time I'm out of cooking. I'm out of the vegan scene in the first 5 years, and that's when I started to watch videos. And Hawaii has a lot of farms, so the markets have a lot of like grass-fed beef from Kona farm, like a farm like a few miles away. And I was like, oh wow, that's different, like this stuff is, I started to look at meat, and I started saying, wow, this food looks pretty good, and a little background on me: I'm Argentinian, so meat is like in our blood, basically. We eat a lot of it, and at one point my parents thought I was losing my mind because I wasn't eating any meat. But I started diving into more like keto carnivore videos, and I started to like inform myself. And I think I might have found like a Sean Baker video or a Paul Saladino at the time when he was still carnivore. And I just started like, hearing about the benefits of eating meat and eating less plants and plant toxins. And then Dr. Gundry came into play, and I started hearing about plant toxins, and like my mind was just like, oh my gosh, like I was so confused, but I was so relieved that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And then I started hearing about like regenerative farms, and how the farming practices, like regular agriculture, is worse for the planet, and all of that. So this is in 2022, and I'm diving into carnivore, and I started incorporating a lot more meats into my diet. At the time, I was living in a retreat center that was all vegan. We happened to have, yeah, it was, you couldn't even bring a piece of meat on the property. So I was living in like kind of like a little, not a hut, but it was like a clamper, like a fancy camping type of situation. I had it all. I mean, it was nice. I had four walls, windows, doors, and all that. It wasn't a bad situation. It was really, and it was beautiful because it was Hawaii. But I'm cooking, I'm secretly cooking meats inside my room, and like I'm lighting incenses all around because I don't want the neighbors to like smell like, I this turkey tail. And I'm a chef, so I'm cooking, like I'm finding like, from tail to snout, I'm finding all the cuts, and I'm like, oh wow, sweetbreads, oh like tripe, oh my god, I got to cook this. It's been a minute, I was just like, I went from 0 to 100, kind of like an alcoholic would, right? Like once you start, it's just like kind of just let me. I dove right in, and I started eating all meats and fruits. I was doing fruits at the time because fruits were growing local there. And I started feeling a lot healthier. I'm going to the gym again. My mood is better. My brain came back. So I'm thinking like I have a lot more clarity. I just feel like a sense of like Zen, It was like I thought veganism was all about spirituality, but it was not. It was like I was so angry when I was vegan, and now I realize I was probably angry because I was missing a lot of vitamins and nutrients. It wasn't like, I'm angry because you're not doing this certain thing, I'm like, I'm angry because I'm missing these nutrients. But I was blaming the animals, I would say, oh, you're a murderer, and really I was just killing myself basically, ironically. I didn't stay carnivore at the time. We left Hawaii after about a year, and we moved to California again. And I started eating basically everything again. I mean, I'm eating a lot more meat, but now I'm including like an omnivore diet. So we're eating vegetables and everything. We're making pastas from scratch, and we're making curries, and all of my background from all these 100 restaurants that I worked at, I'm including that into my diet again because it's been 5 years. I've been eating this fake meat for the last 5 years. And my wife, who's vegan, would tell me, like, instead of eating this Beyond Burger, why don't you just eat real meat? Like, she would literally tell me to eat real meat, and she was vegan. So she wasn't vegan for the animals as much as I was. She was just vegan because it was like healthy for her. I mean, she cares about animals, but she was like, yeah, I'm just doing this for me. And so she wouldn't eat any of that gross, fake meats. That she was luckily like still like very healthy and like food conscious. So luckily, I had her in my life to kind of persuade me to eat meat again, and she was my partner. So I'm like, okay. And so I started eating meat, and she started to see the benefits of that. And I started to, like, I would come home and be like, look what I learned today from, Dr. Chafee. Uh, I was like, dude, can you believe, like, saturated fat is actually not bad for you? Like, I would come home and debunk everything that we've been taught the last, 5 years. For her, 10
And
years.
sorry to interrupt. This is around 2023.
Yeah, yeah. This is 2023. Exactly. So this is like the very end of her being vegan as well. She she started to incorporate meat as well, with me. For the first 3 weeks, it was really hard for her because I think she was like strict vegan, like with the raw at one point, that her gut microbiome was was kind of like that environment was for plants only. So for the first 3 weeks, she didn't have a taste for meat. I mean, she was kind of just putting it down, just because she saw how, like, she realized how much healthier she could be by eating proteins and essential fats and whatnot. So after about 3 weeks, then she started to get a taste for it, you know, and actually now we're both carnivore. So we both went from swinging left to swinging right all the way, which is awesome to have a partner, that can stick by you, and you guys have the same views on certain things. So I'm really, really, really blessed with that she decided to, like, because she wasn't in it for the animals, she was in it for health. When I started telling her that this was healthier for her, then she kind of, she started to also dive into it, watch videos as well, and now she knows the benefits of it as well. So end of 2023, I did a carnivore reset. So I said, okay, I'm going to go carnivore. And this was in October. I went carnivore for about 3 weeks. And one day I ate something with like a lot of black pepper in it. And it just kicked me into like I guess it was keto flu. I don't know. Some people were saying it was COVID. I'm like, hey, listen, it is what it is. I'm sick. It doesn't matter. So I stopped eating meat. Like, I couldn't eat anything for days, and I started to incorporate things like, I was, just to be a little open, I was going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. So I started to incorporate rice into my diet because my mom said something like, you got to eat rice, right? Because that's like chicken and rice soup. That's like the remedy for a stomach ache. And I had a stomach ache. I was sick. I'm pretty sure it was keto flu. It really, I never got it diagnosed, so I can't be certain. But I stopped doing carnivore at the end of 2023, and then I said, okay, I'm going to try it again in January. So January 1st, 2024, this year, I went carnivore again. This time I documented my, the whole 30-day window, and I did it, but there were certain times that I fell off. Like it was my 40th birthday, uh, January 10th, and I ate like cheesecake. I wasn't like serious about it. I mean, I was, but at the same time, like I was struggling because I was addicted to it. And so the sugars and the carbs, and especially the sugars is what really, like, I'm like, oh, I'll just make a smoothie with like a banana and strawberries and raw milk, like that. I should be good, because it's just bananas. But like that would just lead into like a slippery slope of like craving other sweet foods. So I fell off a little bit here and there, and then I made a video actually on my YouTube channel blaming the carnivore diet. And I'm like, carnivore doesn't work. It's not for everybody. And then I had to take my girlfriend, my wife was like, Pablo, like you didn't eat carnivore, like you did it, but like, remember the time you ate that one time we ate like pasta, one time we ate the cake, one time you had a smoothie. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I just didn't do it right. And it's sort of like, my analogy is kind of like with AA. Like if you don't, like, you can't just do it on the weekdays and then on the weekends you go to the bar. It's just like that. Like there's no cheating on this. Cheating for me now is like eating like pork rinds or something, with like extra, fat cottage cheese because the lactose and whatnot. So like my cheating days now are like, still carnivore based, but maybe a little bit more on the keto side. That's how I cheat now. I cheat with keto. So February 15th, day after Valentine's Day, I had to have chocolate on Valentine's Day, of course. So right after that, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm doing this seriously now, and I've been carnivore ever since. So it's been a little bit over a month. It feels like my body doesn't hurt at all. Like I have no hip pain. I used to have a hip pain that I used to like punch it. You know what I mean? Because I'd be like, or I used to like try to punch a different side of me and be like, okay, well, if I hurt that side of me, then maybe this one won't hurt as much, kind of thing, kind of balance it out, or direct the pain somewhere else on my body. It was crazy. I'm like, my lower back and my joints always popping. So I honestly, I haven't felt any pain ever since that day. Like my hips, it doesn't hurt to like get up from, I used to have to get out of my car and I'd be like struggling. And so my sleep, ever since I started, I've been sleeping, I mean, just straight through the night, which normally like doesn't happen. I would wake up with like anxiety, like, oh my God, I have to do this thing. Oh my God, I got to file taxes. Oh my God, I got to, do this one thing. Oh, I didn't do this. And like now that anxiety or whatever it is, like, I don't know, it's gone. Like I can think of like the worst thing that could happen, and that pit in my stomach or like in between like my solar plex is like gone. I used to get this like almost debilitating, a stroke in my heart. I'm like, oh man, like, dude, I'm screwed, or and now I just feel like this like calmness, like sort of like grounded. And I guess it's because we're eating food that's like, just closest to nature. And my clothes fits better. I'm putting on, I didn't want to get rid of any of my clothes, and because I'm like, no, I know I'm going to fit in it. I didn't just buy it for like a one-time use. I'm going to fit back in it. And lo and behold, I'm fitting into those, those shirts and those pants, and, my waist size is shrinking. I'll be honest, like my weight isn't going down, but that's because I work out a lot. I'm in the gym like at least 3 days a week, and I'm doing weightlifting. So I think, I don't really look at the weight at the scale so much right now. And it's only been a month. I need to be patient. Like I would like to lose 20, 30 pounds, but I think, that's going to happen over time. I think this is like a progressive thing. It's not like a perfection. It just gets better after, after a while. You start to like, understand it more. Maybe I fall off one more time. I don't think so. I don't have any reservations, but maybe I do. But I'm going to get back on the horse. I know that this is like the way until I find out something else, that's better for me. Maybe just breathing the air and not eating at all. I don't know. I mean, I doubt that because I love food. I mean, I'm a chef. But this is what I'm going to be doing, at least for the rest of my life.
So just got to one thing that you said there that I want to kind of emphasize. You said, I'm willing to accept this is a progressive thing, or words to that effect
Yeah,
about losing weight, right?
right.
I think this is another thing about the calm that comes across you, because any other diet that you're on, any time in your life, it's always like, why isn't it happening? It's not coming off. But with carnivore, it's like, I feel good. I'm happy to wait for the weight loss to happen
Right.
as it
I think
goes.
it's because I'm enjoying it. It's not like I'm eating canned tuna and lettuce with, a drizzle of vinegar and like a little bit of oil on it because like that's what health used to be. It was like low fat. So it was like oh my God, when can I stop eating like this? But like I'm enjoying like eating steaks and oxtail and, just cooking all sorts of goodies, eggs and butter and all that. It's yeah, and I need to be like I just need to be patient because just like anything else, it's gonna take time, and if it's worth it, it has to take more time.
And of course, the absence of pain makes the waiting or the progress much easier to deal with, right?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Yeah, that's the best part. It doesn't feel like a diet. It doesn't feel like a struggle. It's just like a yeah, yeah. The absence of pain is fantastic. I mean, the quality of my life has has improved 100% eating this way. And I don't want to put the carriage before the horse. I think that's how the expression goes. I don't want to say, oh, this is like the magic bullet or anything like that, but there is something that I'm feeling in real time that's completely, that's evident. Yeah, I don't want to just be like, oh, this, because I used to say that about veganism. Oh, this is amazing. This is like the best thing ever. When I first went vegan, it's because I got off of all the crap food. Like I think that's why people feel better when they're on veganism at first because they stop eating all that processed foods. But something feels different about this. Something feels like this actually like makes sense. Now I look at like vegan foods, and actually I just watched your vegan video yesterday of you you were reviewing a vegan. This guy said everybody must go vegan or something like that.
The Belgian guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was such a depressing interview, like that dark area and that light, that lamp behind him, and just there was no excitement in it. Um, you know what? One more thing I wanted to bring up. I was on TRT for a little bit, right? My doctor, I went to a doctor for the first time in years, and he prescribed TRT because I just turned 40, and he's like, your testosterone is low. That was October 2022. I got off of it October 2023 because I just didn't like the way it made me feel, and I didn't like that I was going to be on it the rest of my life. And if I want to have kids, it's like something that you don't really want to do that, unless you're mixing in other drugs to combat that. So now I'm like, it was tough at first getting off of it because your body is like not producing its own testosterone. For those that don't know, TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. And so now I'm just doing it naturally. So I've been off of it for months now. And, my body's kind of like, I feel like because I'm eating a high fat, high protein diet, I feel like a lot of that natural testosterone in my body started to reboot, and I started to produce my own again. So I am gonna like take a blood test to see where my levels are at in a few months, just to see if carnivore can help me in that aspect of my life.
Mm. I'd love to get you back on after you have the blood test and talk about that too.
Sure,
That'd be awesome.
absolutely.
So I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one is it's not really relevant to your journey, but I'm just so interested. And that's, did they ever find the contraband on the vegan compound? Like all the meat you were eating, did they ever
Oh,
find it, or were
so
the incense sticks enough?
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they did smell it, and I was just playing stupid. Like kind of like when I was on drugs, I would be like, "Nah, nobody can tell," But really, I was like bumping from wall to wall, and I had all this like rage and stuff. I'm sure it was the same thing. But it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because the owners of that retreat center, they were like strict vegan for years. I mean, they were like deadheads type of thing. You know what I mean? Like just very hippie, and I just spoke to them recently, and they're moving. They're moving somewhere here in the States, like on some farmland, and they're eating meat again, and they're eating, yeah. They're off of the vegan diet as well, which is like, it's kind of crazy, but like 2020 shifted a lot of like people's minds about a lot of things. There was a lot of deception out there, and we started to realize like, okay, they're lying about this. What else are they lying about? We started to kind of wake up a little bit. I would say like 2020 is like, you have clear vision. It's like that 2020 vision. You can just see, you see something that you didn't see before. The veil is unlifted. And I think they started to do a little bit more research, because they were older. They were like 70 years old. One of them would always have like some sort of like outbreak, like a herpes outbreak or something, from just the lack of, and he would always be tired, and they were like, they were thin, like really like, malnourished. So we spoke to them recently, and yeah, they're eating meat again. And so I wanted to be like, by the way, I was eating, I was eating meat at your retreat center. Hope that's okay. I kind of want to like, I have him on my fourth step to admit to him my wrongs. But
Nice.
yeah, they never found anything technically.
Nice. So how are you eating day to day now?
So if I eat breakfast, it's eggs with farm raised eggs or pasture raised eggs. We have a local farm here, so we get raw milk. So I start my morning raw dairy, raw butter, and all that. I start my day off with like a little bit of coffee, which I make at home. I don't do the Starbucks thing. I'm not a Starbucks fan. Never was, never will be. So we start off with some eggs in the morning if I eat breakfast. If not, I'll go straight till lunch. I don't get hungry as much eating this way. Like, this is very satiating, very nutrient dense. So I'll eat the night before. If I eat again, it's like noon, and I might have like, I'll just probably have some leftovers. I cook leg of lamb. Like we cook every night for dinner. I make something, octopus. We don't have a lot of seafood, but every once in a while we will do some. So whatever is like left over, or like a ribeye steak or something like that. And I usually eat like 1 to 2 meals a day, tops. It used to be a lot more. And then for dinner, we'll always create something new. We'll make some pot roast or steaks, chicken wings. Sometimes, I don't know why, I crave chicken wings sometimes. Not chicken breast or thighs, even though thighs are, I don't mind the thighs. I don't mind, the fattiness of those. But chicken wings is another one. And yeah, but mostly ruminant animals. That's what I eat now, with just some salt. That's it.
Mm. And so your wife is still doing this with you?
Yeah, yeah, she is. We both started together. Yeah, we both started February 15th. We decided, okay, let's do it, because she started doing carnivore, and she would before, like, she would have trouble, she would have trouble communicating with people, like, just like words wouldn't come to her, and she would just struggle a little bit. She was diagnosed with dyslexia, so that, like, eating, I guess, plant-based her whole life really didn't help her brain. So when she started eating meat, two things happened. She started to get like more clarity, and she started to get her brain back, is what she says. And then she started, like, her anxiety came down as well. So she would always be kind of a nervous person at work, or, just kind of very, very shy. And now she eats meat, and, she feels grounded. She feels, just more alive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. When you think about yourself, what is the number one benefit that you've received? You would just say, like, this is just the number one thing that carnivore has done for me.
The number one thing I think is, my food addiction. Because addiction is something that you have to live with your whole life, and you bring it everywhere you go. So if I was at a party, or I would go out to dinner with six people, and we're like, hey, let's all share food. And I'd be like, I don't want to share with you. I want my own plate. you know and but now that I know this food is so, like, nutrient dense, and I don't have to eat as much, right? I can just, like, now I don't mind sharing. I don't have that, like, oh, I gotta eat some chips right now, or I gotta eat ice cream right now. Like, it's not like that. That is probably the best benefit that I've gotten out of it, because I am an addict in other ways, that, you know it just feels good to not have to be, so attached to food. Besides, like, the pain going away, and the anxiety going away, and feeling more grounded. Those are definitely, like, some positives, but that one, I would say, is probably the best benefit that I got out of this.
Yeah, it's a really nice feeling, right? And it's a really nice feeling, like, when you are starting to get hungry, the hunger just comes on really slowly. It's like your body's, your stomach or whatever is tapping you and going, maybe we'll need some food in the next few hours, you
Right.
know? Whereas the before times it was like, food now.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I can go. I've been doing some fasting, a lot of, like, intermittent fasting lately. I mean, I can go almost. I did almost 24 hours the other day. It was my first, like, real fast in a while. Um, but I'm like, before, I wouldn't even be able to do that. I would have to eat something. And yeah, you're right. It comes on slowly, and you're like, maybe I'll need some food in a few hours. That's kind of like the thought process. It's like, I'm good. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna starve to death. Yeah, yeah. Before, it'd be like, eat, eat now,
And
or
stock up just in case we get hungry in a few
right.
minutes' time too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I could eat. I could definitely eat. I mean, when I was a kid, I was a big kid growing up. I was overweight. Back in high school, and elementary school. That was actually the first time I went on a diet. Was junior year of high school. So I was 15, 16 years old. But my first addiction is food. That's, definitely, before anything else. It was definitely food.
Mm, yeah. So, if you were giving someone advice on, getting started with carnivore and how to kind of stick to it without falling off the wagon, what would you recommend?
I would say get rid of anything that isn't aligned with the carnivore diet from your house, out of sight, out of mind, because there's going to be times where your parasites or your addiction is going to kick in and be like, it's fine. It's not going to kill you. It's not. it's, just have a little bit, and you'll get right back on. Two, I would say stock up on foods. Um, Stock up on foods that you do want to eat, eggs. Maybe get some cheese, because cheese is like, cheese has some casein protein, and I think like some people say that triggers the same part of your brain as like cocaine. I don't know. It could be like a little bit addicting to some people, but if that's like what you use for your transition, I would say maybe just get some cheese. And when you're craving something sweet, eat cheese, because there's lactose in there, and that's a form of sugar. So you're still getting it, but you're not getting it in that raw form of like sucrose or fructose. And C, I would watch Dave Mack's channel, because you put out a lot of information. There's always some new revelation with somebody. There's all these like anecdotal stories of people healing on carnivore. I would just dive in, watching tons of carnivore doctors, carnivore creators, because like the more you learn, the more you understand, the easier it'll be for the transition, because then you won't have that excuse. You'll be armed with the information to help you transition. So I guess those three things would probably be like a good, maybe in that order.
I really like that thing about being armed with the information as well, because I know in the past, previous attempts at keto, I haven't had the information about vitamin C and all that kind of thing coming from
Right.
meat. And not having that, it was kind of that excuse to go, oh, I can just jump off this because maybe I need to get the vitamin C. And
Exactly.
before you know
Or
it,
the
you're
sugar.
lying under a wheelbarrow full of Krispy Kreme donuts.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's all the information's out there, and you can get everything that you need from animal-based diet. And everything else, I look at it now, and I look at it and I say poison. That's poison. Like, just remember where you were, kind of thing. Remember the pain you were in, mentally and physically. Remember the struggle, remember the addiction, and that just kind of keeps me going. And it's a one day at a time, like anything else. Just do it for today, and then tomorrow start again. If you feel good, if you wake up and you want to do it again, until that's why I say it's a progress thing, because after a while you've already we've kind of gone through the woods, doing harm to our body. So now it's going to take a little bit of time to get out of there, but like once you're out, and you're on the clear path, and you know that this is benefiting you, and this is aligning with you, it's going to be a lot easier to understand it. So it's not going to be perfect at first. Maybe some people do have that, like, that click where it's like, oh, this is perfect, I'm never going back, and it happens. But for me, it takes a little bit of time. Like, I start it, and then I test, I fall off, until I'm like, okay, I don't want to fall off, because I remember what happens when I fall off the boat. I got to swim in the waves, right? It's like, I'd rather be on the boat, hanging out, and just being in calm, in like a good place.
Nice. So, really important question. Are you still a chef at a vegan restaurant?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, not at all. No, I actually don't work in kitchens anymore. I love cooking for myself now. I do a couple of things. I have an Amazon store that I started working on during COVID, because everything was shut down. So I'm like, okay, let's try e-commerce. Let's try something else where it's not demanding. I don't have to be, because being a chef is really tough work. You're working all the holidays, all the weekends. You're around a bunch of people that are also addicted and angry. I mean, there's a lot of like, it's an art. So you're around like a lot of kind of crazy people. So I was just like, I got to get out of this world. So after 20 years, I put down my apron. I no longer work in the kitchen. I do other things. Like I'm a sales rep for a caviar company now. So instead of now when I go into the kitchen, it's not to flip pancakes, it's to, flip caviar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so Pablo, how can we find you? You mentioned you have a YouTube channel.
I do. I do. It's at Fancy Carnivore. And I kind of call it Fancy Carnivore because people used to make fun of me, like, "Oh, you're so fancy," because I would, do the raw stuff and the organic stuff. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just use that as kind of my handle. So yeah, yeah. I'm on Instagram as well, but I'm not really active on there. I'm more on the YouTube. I just love watching. I love watching videos, and I make a lot of shorts on cooking. So I'll, from start to finish, I'll somehow compact that into a 1 minute video, and it seems to be doing pretty good right now. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying cooking for myself and for my significant other.
Nice. Well, I'll link to your channel in the show notes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Um, and I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, and I'm really happy for both you and your wife.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for doing what you do. We really appreciate it.